welcome everybody to your nation's capital, to where laws are made, where laws are meant to be upheld, where the values of our nation should be protected by those of us who have been elected as guardians of justice, fairness, and the voice of the community. I know many of you, I'm preaching to the converted, I know where you stand on this issue. And I know many of you, like me, have been extremely disappointed and heartbroken at just how vicious the political debate around refugees and asylum seekers has become. And I know that many of you have fought this battle for a long, long time. Muhammad's story of being locked up on Nauru when he was 10 years old. And now what a fantastic Australian he has become. We can't pretend any longer that we don't know the consequences of indefinite detention, and the detention in particular of children. Knowingly detaining, taking the lives of these children away, punishing them because their parents, their siblings, their uncles, their aunts, their family dared to give them a chance, is actually creating, I fear, the next damaged generation. The children who are detained in the detention centres on Manus Island, including 3 unaccompanied minors, young people who are there without friends or family, the children who are being detained in Christmas Island indefinitely, not allowed to go to school, given substandard support. These children will, we know, be found to be in genuine need of protection, because no one boards a dangerous boat to get to Australia unless you have to. People don't take the decision lightly. And Australia is a really, really lucky country. And Muhammad is lucky to be here. He's at university, he's studying. There's generations of people who have come to this country as refugees and new migrants and have made this country great and have been lucky because they have been welcomed into our communities. But we live in a region where not everybody is so lucky. Whether it's in Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Burma, Australia has an international responsibility to help look after those who are in desperate need of protection. And the myth that somehow there is a queue which is orderly, that people can simply put their name on the list and hopefully one day your name will become the top. Somebody said to me the other day that it's not a queue. At best, it's a lottery. And if you are a mother or a father with children and you've had to escape Afghanistan, like one family I met in Indonesia last year, the husband was killed by the Taliban because he was a journalist working in Kabul. The mother was very brave. She got her 3 children and they got out of there. And they have been waiting to get to the top of that list for years. They're now hiding out in Indonesia with no prospect of ever really being resettled. Her children can't go to school. She's not allowed to work. They can't access the local hospitals or the medical clinics when the children get sick. And she said to me, when I was sitting down with her, well, what other option do I have? I don't want to have to come to Australia by boat. I'd prefer to go anywhere, but I want my children to be safe. They are the stories of the people who are coming here and who we need to be listening to, treating with dignity and respect. Indefinite detention, locking families up in island prisons, Nauru or Papua New Guinea, or even continuing to lock people up on Christmas Island, is not making them safer, and it's not making anybody else safer. The callous and vicious attack on the rights of some of our region's most vulnerable people is an attack on our national spirit. Tony Abbott's policies, followed closely, led in some regards by the Labor Party, have diminished us as a country. They have said that my colleagues up on the hill here would prefer to see us lock children in detention for the sake of domestic politics, rather than work to find a safer way of helping refugees find safety in the long term. I just want to let you know about this. This is, last week I moved a motion in the Senate that was supported by the Senate, calling on Mr Morrison to be upfront with the Australian people about what has really been going on the high seas, how families have been treated when boats have been intercepted, the dangers that our Navy personnel are put in are the attempts of turning back boats, injecting a little transparency into a policy that they are apparently so proud of. Of course, we know the Friday briefings of the Minister consist little more of, that's an operational matter, so operationally I better not say anything. This afternoon, I've been given Mr Morrison's response to that request for information. It is basically a transcript. In fact, it's not basically, it is. It's a transcript of every Friday briefing since the election. And this minister, this government, are so arrogant that they believe that the spirit of fairness, the value of family, and the notion of compassion is so unimportant to the Australian people that they can carry on like this. Not being upfront, the wheels are falling off their policies, and yet they prefer not to tell anybody so they don't have to be embarrassed about it. Meanwhile, we hear of babies being taken from their mothers, fathers not being able to visit their children. I'm a glass half full kind of girl, and I think the more people know about what's really going on, the more people hear the stories of the children who are detained in these awful places, the more we will prove Mr Morrison and Mr Abbott wrong. People will not stand for callous, cruel policies. They will not accept secrecy just out of hand. So I'm going to have to send this back to Morrison and ask him to go again. There are a lot of people around this country who agree with you. Everywhere I go, taxis, airport, in the supermarket, every day, every single day, I have somebody come up and say, Sarah, thank you. And thank you to the Greens for standing up for the rights of these people. This is not the kind of country I want to live in. And you should take that on and keep that with you, because Mr Morrison and Tony Abbott want you to believe that nobody cares. They want you to believe that people think it was right to detain Mohammed at the age of 10 years old for 3 years in an island prison. It is not right. It is wrong. And we don't have to do it like that. This is an issue around the whole globe. Australia can't pretend that we are isolated from our region's problems, from the global conflicts that are happening. But we do have a responsibility as the wealthiest nation in our region to do better, to stand strong. And where you see human rights abuses, as the leader of a country, you should have the guts to stand up and call it out. We've seen Tony Abbott's display of gutlessness over the weekend, where he wasn't prepared to say anything about human rights in Sri Lanka. Of course, that suits his political agenda. That suits his political agenda because he wants to send all refugees who come from Sri Lanka back there. That's against international law. And it is not in line with Australia's obligations to look at people's claims, assess them fairly and welcome them if indeed they need protection. The majority of people who come here by boat are found to have a genuine need for why they ran away from their country, a genuine need for why, as parents, desperate to give safety and protection to their children. It is not illegal to seek asylum in Australia. Every time you hear a minister from the Abbott government on radio, on the television, in the newspaper, refer to asylum seekers or refugees as illegals, I ask you, challenge it immediately. Do not let it go unchallenged. It is wrong. It is not the law. The law is that we accept refugees, we accept the ability for people to claim asylum in Australia, and if we wanted to, we could be doing it in a much fairer, a much more humane way, and, I might add, saving the Australian taxpayer billions of dollars in the process. I've been up here for a while, so I'm going to get off in a minute. Last thing I wanted to say is that obviously many of you I know have written to members of Parliament about the temporary protection visa legislation, regulations. TPVs are happening now. I've moved a motion in the Parliament to disallow TPVs. It will be voted on December the 2nd. What will the Labor Party do? I hope that they do exactly what they did in 2008, which was to stand up for fairness, stand up for human rights, do what we should always be doing when it comes to managing the needs of a refugee. Don't let them hanging in limbo with the threat of being sent back to danger. Let their children go to school, start rebuilding their lives. But you need to tell your MPs that. The vote will be on December the 2nd. Please do everything you can to remind the Labor Party that there was a reason temporary protection visas were scrapped in the first place, and the dangers that temporary protections leave families in for years and years. And the last thing I just wanted to say was that we really need to keep lifting our voice on this issue. I came into politics in 2001 because of the Tampa. I was an activist. I used to come to things like this, and I worked out pretty quickly The only way it was going to change was to change the minds and the hearts of people in this place. We have to tell them the stories, explain to them that these are families. And we know that the majority of Australians, if they were in this situation, if their husband, their dad, was killed by the Taliban simply for being a journalist, and the Taliban, and you knew that they were coming after your children, you would leave. These are the real stories of refugees who come to Australia. Tell those stories, and don't for 1 minute let Tony Abbott tell the Australian people that they don't care and that they shouldn't care, because they do. This is about our national identity. It is about our national spirit. We are the country of a fair go. Tell Tony Abbott he's the one who's got it wrong. Thank you very much.